Welcome to The Truth Will Not Be Silenced, the show that allows people to be seen, to be heard, and to be human. I'm your host, Melissa Whyte. In today's episode, we will talk about American football versus football, also known as soccer, with Nathan Whyte. Sharing our stories allows us to encourage, inspire, motivate, uplift, and help people. There will be a special surprise at the end of the show. Be sure to listen all the way through for the details. Our special guest today is my husband, Nathan Whyte, who is happily married to me, his loving wife. Nathan is a transportation, logistics, and supply chain executive. He was born and raised in England. He is a proud graduate of Forest Hills Boys School in London, Sydenham College in London, and Birmingham University in Birmingham. Nathan holds multiple certifications in logistics and transportation supply chain worldwide. He has over 34 years in the workforce, bringing forth his expertise in business and logistics. He is the co-founder and owner of White Warehouse Connection, LLC, providing the best business and education products and services. He loves sports. Nathan is going to share with us about American football versus football, also known as soccer. Hi, Nathan. Welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, everybody.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into that first question. What is the difference between American football and football that we know as soccer?
Well, firstly, American football is more a sport where you pick up the ball and you run in hand. Soccer is a game where the ball is kicked by your feet. It's very different. It's a completely different scope, a different game. It has different rules and it has different challenges. They're both very physical, but American football is a little bit more rougher in execution.
You would also say that in American football, they carry the ball. You did say how in football, soccer, that it's kicked. So it's more, the word football really does apply to soccer because it's foot to ball. Whereas in American football, it's hand to hand. They may kick it if it's like a field goal, but majority of the game is played hand to hand.
Correct.
Which is very interesting. What is your favorite sport and why?
My favorite sport is soccer, which is known as football in Europe. It gives, well, everybody can play soccer. You can just buy a soccer ball, may cost you, say, $5, maybe even £3 English. You can go out and play it in the street any time of the day. You can become a professional at the sport. It gives you worldwide exposure in your nation. It gives you the chance to earn a living beyond one's wildest dreams. The financial reward is, the sky's the limit with the financial reward. And plus it's also the love for the game, the competition, the banter with the fans, the rapport with the fans, and plus going back and forth with other teams, and just having that connection in a sport which is worldwide. It really is a worldwide game.
So with that being said, did you play soccer as a child, and how was that? And what is your favorite soccer football team?
Well, yeah, I played soccer since I was 5 years old. Gave it up when I was about 39 years old, to be fair. But I've played it for years. I mean, I used to play nearly every day of the week when I was a lot younger. Used to play in a Saturday league, used to play in a Sunday league. My favorite team is Manchester United Football Club. They're based in Old Trafford, in the south of Manchester, or just outside the city centre. Their ground is Old Trafford. It holds about maybe 90,000. It used to hold, years ago, you could cram people in way back. You probably get about 100,000 fans into the ground. We've won 20 league titles, National League titles. We've won the the European Champions League, we've won the FA Cup, we've won the League Cup, we've won the FA Cup, we've won major trophies. So we're one of the biggest clubs in the world, along with our rivals across the Mersey, the biggest club in England as well.
All right. So I have to ask you now, who's your favorite soccer football player?
If I was to pick one on the worldwide scale, I'd have to say Pele. Pele from Brazil. He used to play, his club he used to play for was Santos in Brazil. I'd say Pele. He was the one that kind of, got me into football because his name just reverberated everywhere. Everybody knew who he was. They knew what he stood for. And he was just, for me, it was just total football excellence. And he made the game look pretty. And it was very simple, the way he played it. So he was my first idol in soccer general, world soccer.
All right. So now I have to ask, what sports are similar to what we know is American football?
That would be rugby. It's a sport called in Britain and in the southern hemisphere, we call it rugby. It is identical in the way, the players are set up. They don't wear all the extra padding, but they use the same type of ball. They run with it the same way. They carry it kind of like underarm. But the rules are a little bit different. The size of the pitch is similar. They have the same type of goal posts. They can run with the ball. They can do field goals. They can kick the ball. It's very, very similar. The sport derives from each other. Rugby came about first, and then American football came about. But the history goes is an American graduate from one of the universities in Britain saw the game of rugby, took it back to the United States, and they changed some rules, added some additional things to it, and it became American football. So that's the difference between the two.
Well, when you also say that in rugby, I think you mentioned this, how they don't wear all that padding, so it's more dangerous.
Yes.
Than American football, where you're like padded from head to toe and so forth. And so would you say that out of the two, between American football and rugby would have to be a little bit more competitive, a little bit more dangerous, would you say? What would you say?
Yeah, American football has evolved over the years due to, injuries suffered by professionals over decades, and have brought in new safety regulations to protect the actual player from long-term injury after his career has ended. Rugby, they have similar rules, but they're not enforced to the same way because you just got a pair of shorts on the top, and it's head on, full, tackles going in. And it's like two balls hitting each other.
Body to body.
Yeah, body to body. There is no
cushion
simplicities. No, there's no cushions. There's no nothing. So it really is a rough, tough sport. If you're not into that sort of thing, keep away from it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna flip back to your favorite sport, which is known as football, but we call it soccer. And I want you to share with us some of the biggest plays in that sport. Some of the biggest plays for you. Teams played, players played, FIFA World Cup play. What are some of the biggest plays for you?
For me, I remember the first World Cup I remember at the world stage was the 1982 World Cup, where the Italians won the actual World Cup. And probably the game of the whole tournament for me wasn't the final where the Italians beat the West Germans, but it was more Italy versus Brazil. Brazil turned up with a star-studded side. I remember players like Socrates and Zico, and the Italians had Paolo Rossi, and players of this nature, and it was a magnificent game of football. The Italians won a game 3-2, but the game itself lives down in memories for me. The 1982 World Cup. That was the game of the World Cup. I also remember the World Cup of 1986, where Argentina won the World Cup, but there was a game in the World Cup, and that was the first I'd really seen of Diego Maradona. He was a magnificent player. He was the player until Leonardo Messi came along that held sway for the Argentine side. He was a superstar, and they went on to win the tournament. But the one game I remember the most, for probably the reasons the Argentinians really don't want to remember, is when Maradona, the Argentines knocked England out the World Cup. They won 2-1, but there was a famous goal by Diego Maradona where he touched the ball with his hand and kind of like handballed it into the net.
Which is illegal.
Which is illegal. He handballed it into the net. And that's the game.
They didn't have all those replays. They didn't
right.
have all of the electronics,
right.
all of the sideline stuff like they have today. They didn't have that back then.
I remember the ball came in. He jumped up with Peter Shilton, who was England's goalkeeper, and he touched the ball, and it kind of flew into the net. But no one ever talks about one of the great goals of the whole tournament, and Maradona scored that goal as well. He ran from back to front through the whole England team and scored a remarkable goal. But no one talks about that goal. They only talk about the goal that he handballed to the back of the net.
Wow. Now I have to ask you, when we talk about football, soccer from back in the day, how for me, Pele is one of the GOATs of soccer, football, for me. And I know he's also your favorite player and overall favorite player. So with that being said, looking at football from back in the day to football today, where we have, you mentioned it, Lionel Messi, we have Ronaldo, we've had David Beckham, we have so many, Mbappe, we have so many today. How would you compare the two from back in the day to today?
No, the first thing is exposure, is worldwide exposure. You have all the latest technology, your replays. There's so much money in the sport. The money is just endless. The whole structure of UEFA football has changed as well. That's all changed. There were 3 major competitions in Europe in the UEFA League. You used to have the European Cup final, which was which is now known as the Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
You used to have the UEFA Cup final, which is now known as the Europa League. And then there's another version of a secondary Europa League, which has replaced the old Cup Winners' Cup final. And the Cup Winners' Cup final was for your nation's major cup winners. It was like a knockout competition. The exposure you have in that and the money that it generates for the actual league clubs is just completely endless. I mean, the glamour competition is the Champions League. Many years ago, the only teams that used to play in the Champions League were your National League champions. That was for your National League champions. So your number 1 team who finished top of the league at the end of every season would automatically go into the Champions League. The 2 teams finishing second and third would go into the UEFA Cup. And the team that won your National Cup, which was a knockout competition in England, which was in those days was the FA Cup. It was a competition that every team in the leagues, not just the top league, in all the leagues entered, and they played against each other to see who the final 2 teams were that qualified to get to Wembley. And the winner of that competition used to play in the Cup Winners' Cup. So that's all changed somewhat, because now the Champions League, you can have 4 or 5 teams from your league playing in the Champions League, not necessarily your league champions.
Right.
So those days are over. The other thing I'd say for English football is the advent of the creation of the Premier League, because in 1993 the Premier League was created. Before that, it was the English First Division, right? And the majority of the players in that league were all British-born or British-based players. You'd rarely see any European players in that league. You'd never see anybody from countries like Italy, South America, or any of them countries. Would never play in France. Unheard of. Spain, not at all. They were never playing in the English First Division. When the Premier League came along, then it opened the door for English clubs to go into the market and do some business and have players from all over the world playing in the English Premier League. And it's strengthened the league. English teams are now more competitive at the European level, and they're known all over the world. If it wasn't for the Premier League, you'd only get to see
your country's player teams.
Your country's players probably in the World Cup or in the Nations European Cup, but on the bigger level, most definitely in the World Cup. But if you didn't qualify for the World Cup,
you didn't get
to see anybody.
Yeah.
So it's very, very different now. The advent of technology, moving with the times, modern way of doing things, apps, replays, and so on.
The VARs,
all these different things now. As soccer, football, whatever you choose to call it, is really a worldwide sport.
Right.
Every nation has a team that plays in it. It's all over the world. I can see any team I wish to see playing in soccer, no matter what league it's in. I can find it and I can watch whoever I want to watch. It really is a worldwide sport.
And so I'd also have to say, adding on to what you're saying, is that we also have USA American players that also play in those leagues. And in addition to that, our most competitive between our USA men's and our USA women's soccer teams, our most competitive and most winning team is the women's USA soccer team, having won the World Cup, 3 times?
I know they've not won it a number of times.
Yes.
They're practically over the last, how many years? Maybe
they've cemented themselves in the world of soccer.
World stage. They've dominated.
The world stage, which is amazing.
Yeah, they've dominated ladies football at the highest level, just completely dominated.
Repeatedly,
they've dominated it, and they've helped to push female football to have leagues all over the world as well. Like there's leagues now in
countries that there wasn't countries for women.
For women. Yeah, there's leagues in countries that was only specifically for men. Now it's for women as well. The English leagues have women teams as well as men teams. So Manchester United has a men's soccer team and they have a women's soccer team. All the top teams in English football now have a men and a women's side. So it's really branched out and it's growing. It's now females can play football. They even have it I watch it in America. They have the ladies team as well. So it's really, really,
and that's also grown in America too, where the men's league, the USA men's league, we have a lot more teams in soccer's in MLA, and then we have the women's teams have also grown. We have a lot more women's teams in soccer too. So yes, and yes to everything that you said. So now I have to turn back to American football because I'm from Chicago and I grew up with the Bears, bear down, go Bears, and so forth. And so with that being said, we know that your favorite sport is soccer, football, but since we've been married, what's your favorite American football team?
Chicago Bears.
Of course. And since we've been married, Manchester United is my favorite soccer team. I always root for home country, which is USA. on the worldwide stage. Of course, I got to represent my country, but at the same time, we're two countries brought together, which is awesome. So, share some times about you watching Manchester United. You also have seen games at Wembley, and then you've also seen the Chicago Bears multiple times.
Yeah. Watching Manchester United, I've been to Old Trafford to see, to watch them. I remember going as far back as a big game at Old Trafford. Well, all the games are big at Old Trafford because all of them were big, huge games. The actual crowd that turned up, which is in huge numbers. But I remember in 1990, Manchester United played Liverpool. I remember that game more than way back because I remember Liverpool having their grey kit on.
Was that when Andy Cole played?
No,
who was on
Andy
the
Cole
team
played after.
Oh, he played after that?
Yeah, Mark Hughes and other players played with them. He played after that. But I remember Liverpool were going for the league title, and John Barnes played for them in that game.
Yes.
John Barnes played. I remember Ian Rush playing for them. Mark Hughes played for us. We had Danny Wallace and other players who played. I remember that game very, very much because of the way the opposition played the game and what they were playing for. They were going for the league title, just like they recently won, and they came away with the 3 points on that particular day. But I've been to Old Trafford on occasions, and I've been lucky to get tickets to go and see Manchester United play Liverpool on a number of occasions in the FA Cup and in the league.
Yes, and
we've won. Yeah, we've won. I've seen Charity Shield matches at Wembley, and I've seen Manchester United win that. I've seen all sorts of types of games. I've even been away to watch games. People get me tickets for an away matches, and in those days you had to go and you made your own way.
Yeah.
You could go through the club.
Now where teams will
charter.
Will charter fans to away games, which was unheard of back then.
Back then they had charters, but most people kind of like made their own way because the charters sometimes could be expensive, but you could get a cheap bus ticket or a train ticket somewhere, and especially if you was going to places like Anfield or another big city, you're playing Manchester City. Manchester City was down the road, and in those days they were at Main Road, so it's easy to get to those games, even though the tickets for those games were very difficult to get. Usually, I knew season ticket holders who just couldn't attend, and I paid them a little bit of cash more than what the ticket was worth just to get the ticket to go to the game. But that's how it was, You did what you had to do to go and see, see the match.
And now it's difficult to get those tickets where they're exclusively for season ticket holders, and they're sold out for years to come. So you have to know somebody nowadays to even get a ticket. Whereas back in the day, it was easier for you to get a ticket than it is today.
And I remember United winning their first league title after 27 years in 1993. I remember the team that they had.
Okay, honey, talk about your experience with American football.
American football, the Chicago Bears has a big following, a huge following. Anywhere they go,
they take their whole stadium. We take the whole stadium.
The whole stadium. They take over the whole stadium, and they always have
just orange and blue for days.
They have fans based all over the US. They're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. I've seen.
Have you ever seen anything like that? When the first time that we went to, when you saw your first Chicago Bears American football game, and to many times that you've seen the Chicago Bears play after that, have you ever seen anything like that in American football?
No, not in the fan base. The fan base is huge. It's like
Bear down for life.
Yeah, Manchester United going away from home. It's a full house.
Yes.
It's a full house. I was surprised how many Chicago Bear fans they are. They're everywhere. They're well supported. We've even been out to the local ground out here, the Cardinals. And
you saw the Bears play the Arizona Cardinals. We saw the Bears play the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, we went to New Orleans.
In New Orleans. So that's when I say he has had a full immerse in the American football, especially the Chicago Bears, with me being from Chicago and us being married. I mean, he's had that experience. We're all over.
Yeah, but the other thing is you have to be prepared to travel distance as well, because you're traveling thousands of miles sometimes to get to another state. And I mean, it's an airplane flight. It is really, really a long way away. So you have to be dedicated.
I have to say this though, and tell me if you remember this, where the Bears weren't playing and we went to an Arizona Cardinals game and we still saw a flood of fans still like us bear down in our Chicago Bears jerseys and gear. And so, yes, but it's amazing.
If I was to mention that American football is big in a way because they have the Super Bowl.
Yes.
And they have this Super Bowl and it's huge. The Super Bowl is absolutely it's something else. You don't have that in rugby. You have the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
You have different things in rugby, but you don't have it on the scale as the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The money it generates is on it's a different playing field, different leagues. What the players get paid in American football as well compared to rugby is just a different ballgame.
Yeah. So, final question. How does sharing your story today help others?
Well, it gives you an in-depth insight to the two different sports. It also gives you an insight to where the passion begins. You know, it's where it starts from and how you become a football fan in anything, soccer fan, American football fan, whatever the type of football you like the best. It doesn't really matter how you get there. You always start somewhere in sport. You start somewhere and you get attached to a team through some means, you know, and you don't always win all your games. You're not always successful, but you always follow the team no matter what.
All right. Thank you so much for being here again, Nathan, and sharing your insights with the love of sports and the love for the game. So those of you that want to know how you can get in contact with Nathan, you can go to www.whitewarehouseconnection.llc, or you can send him an email at info@whitewarehouseconnection.com. Next week, we'll continue to share about real life experiences, both personal and professional. Stories that need to be shared, seen, and heard that makes us human. The truth will not be silenced, to be seen, to be heard, and to be human. The surprise. If you like or leave a positive comment about our show, you'll get a shout out. This includes businesses, products, services, organizations, and events. Big shouts out to @LiveWellWithCharity, @ClassyLadyDJ4099, @AliceChrome-W2B, and @Romeo the Comedian. Thanks for leaving us those positive comments about our show. Following the link in the show notes lets Buzzsprout know we sent you and help support our show. Buzzsprout is the best way to launch a professional podcast. Want to ask a question, be a guest, or subscribe to our podcast, The Truth Will Not Be Silenced? Click on the show link. Thank you so much for joining us.